Hi, my name is Ken, and I'm a student at the most famous cooking school in the world, Le Cordon Bleu, just a few blocks from the Eiffel Tower. The Cordon Bleu Cuisine and Pastry School was founded in Paris in 1895. It owes its name to the ancient and prestigious Royal Order of the Holy Spirit, known as the Order of the Cordon Bleu. As a result, the name Cordon Bleu became synonymous with culinary excellence. Like the students, you too will benefit from the chef's experience. Nearly a century of experience in teaching gastronomy. The program is organized in the form of complete menus, from easy to prepare to the more elaborate recipes which will take you progressively towards discovering the subtle nuances of traditional haute cuisine. Before we show you how to prepare vegetable recipes, let's take in the atmosphere of the Marché aux Légumes, the vegetable market of the Rue Montorgueil. Here, locals start coming very early in the morning, usually having a coffee at the bistro next door, catching up on the local gossip. Students of Cordon Bleu come here to experience this very special French market atmosphere. Aubergine Bayaldi. Eggplants Bayaldi, serves 6. The recipe for eggplant Bayaldi consists of eggplants, tomatoes, shallots, Gruyere cheese, butter, garlic, tomato paste, basil, cayenne pepper, olive oil, salt, and pepper. 3 medium eggplants, salt, 3 shallots finely chopped, 4 cloves garlic finely chopped, 4 tablespoons olive oil, 1 3/4 pounds tomatoes, peeled, seeded, and diced, salt, freshly ground pepper, 1 tablespoon tomato paste, cayenne pepper, 1 bunch fresh basil, 3 small tomatoes, 1 cup shredded Gruyere cheese, 2 to 3 tablespoons unsalted butter. Prepare a rack with paper towels to disgorge the eggplant. Cut the stem and leaves off of each eggplant. Cut them lengthwise in half. These eggplants must be allowed to disgorge for at least 20 minutes to remove as much liquid as possible. Make several incisions halfway through the flesh of each half. These cuts will help eliminate much of the liquid. Then sprinkle the flesh with salt, which will help draw out the juice. Arrange the halves flesh side down on the rack to allow the liquid to drain out. Peel the shallots and cut them lengthwise in half. Lay the flat side down and make several parallel cuts, first vertically, then horizontally, leaving it attached at the root end. Then cut in the opposite direction to chop the shallots finely. Also, peel the garlic and chop it finely. Preheat the oven to 400 degrees. After disgorging the eggplant for at least 20 minutes, use paper towels to wipe off the excess salt and juice. Dry the flesh well. Pour some olive oil into a roasting pan. Place the eggplant halves in the pan with the flesh side down. Even though it will be cooked in a hot oven, the flesh should not color. It should stay white as it cooks. Put the eggplant into the preheated oven for about 15 to 20 minutes. To peel the tomatoes, start by cutting out the stem end. Some people cut an X or a cross in the base, but this chef says it isn't necessary. Put the tomatoes into rapidly boiling water for just a few seconds, since you don't want them to cook. Prepare a bowl of cold water or ice water on the side, which will serve to stop the cooking. Lift the tomatoes out of the boiling water and cool them immediately in the cold water. Then peel off the skin with a small knife. Cut each tomato horizontally in half and squeeze out the seeds and liquid. Chop the tomatoes coarsely.
Alors au départ, je vais mettre toute cette concassée de tomates en cuisson avec ail.
The chef will cook these tomatoes with garlic, shallots, and a little tomato paste for color. When the tomatoes are halfway cooked, he will divide them into two portions, some for the sauce and some for the eggplant stuffing. Heat a little olive oil in a sauté pan. Add some chopped shallots and garlic.
C'est une recette du Sud, donc c'est une recette à base qui dit du Sud dit souvent basilic, huile d'olive, tomate, ail, échalote, cayenne. Donc c'est une recette.
This is a flavorful recipe from the south of France, and all of these ingredients are typical of the cuisine of that region.
À l'ail et à l'échalote au départ. Ça veut dire donner du goût au départ.
Sweat the shallots and garlic. To sweat means to cook gently without coloring. Season lightly with pepper and just a little bit of salt. Add a little tomato paste and allow it to cook to remove some of the acidity. Since it can burn easily, be careful not to overcook the tomato paste.
Et maintenant, dedans, je vais ajouter, n'abusez pas trop parce que ça risque de brûler, je vais ajouter mes tomates. J'ajoute ma tomate sur le feu.
Now add the chopped tomatoes and allow the mixture to cook for 5 or 10 minutes.
Et après, je ferai ma séparation en deux casseroles différentes pour la farce et pour le coulis.
Remove the eggplants from the oven once the flesh is fully cooked, but before it begins to color. Use a spoon to carefully scrape out the center flesh. Leave some flesh around the edges to give support to the skin. Return the skins to the roasting pan.
Et puis je vais remettre ça, donc cette demi-aubergine, dans une plaque en attendant de la farcir.
Chop the scooped out flesh finely. Work quickly since eggplant tends to darken when exposed to the air.
Je vais hacher ça, donc cette coupe assez fin. Je vais aller assez rapidement parce que l'aubergine a tendance à noircir si elle reste trop longtemps à l'air. Donc échalote hachée.
Heat some olive oil in a sauté pan. Add some chopped shallots and garlic.
Et je fais suer.
Remember that there is garlic with the tomatoes, so use just a little now. Stir the shallots and garlic and sweat them well.
Et maintenant, je vais ajouter
Add the chopped eggplant flesh. Put it back on the heat and stir constantly. Since eggplant absorbs a lot of oil and tends to dry out, be careful not to let it stick to the pan. Add about 2/3 of the cooked tomato mixture to the eggplant. Stir well and allow it to reduce until all of the liquid has evaporated. The remaining 1/3 of the tomato mixture will be used for the coulis. Allow it to reduce for 3 or 4 minutes before pureeing it in a vegetable mill or food processor. The chef will then reheat it and allow it to reduce a little if it's not thick enough. Season the coulis with cayenne pepper, and salt, and allow it to simmer gently. Slice half of the fresh basil leaves. The French cooking term for slicing green leaves is ciseler. Add half of the sliced basil to the eggplant stuffing and set aside the other half for the coulis. Remove the coulis from the heat to prevent it from reducing too much. Here you can see the desired consistency for the stuffing. It should be fairly dry without too much liquid remaining. When it reaches this consistency, take it off the heat and prepare to stuff the eggplants. Season the insides of the eggplants with salt and pepper. Spoon in the stuffing to fill all of the halves. If you have any extra stuffing, don't throw it away. You can puree it and add it to the sauce. Arrange tomato slices on top of each eggplant half. The stuffing should be completely covered by the overlapped tomatoes. Then, sprinkle some shredded Gruyere cheese onto each eggplant half. Of course, the cheese adds color, flavor, and texture, but it also helps to hold up the sides of the eggplant as it melts. Then top each one with a small piece of unsalted butter, which will give brilliance to the baked eggplant. Put the eggplants into the oven at 375 degrees for 10 to 12 minutes. Remove them when the cheese on top is lightly browned. Just before serving, reheat the tomato coulis and add the sliced basil. Place the stuffed eggplants on paper towels to drain off the excess oil. One way to serve them is all together on a large platter. Spoon the tomato coulis around them to cover the bottom of the platter. Then decorate with whole basil leaves. For an individual plate presentation, first spoon the coulis onto the plate and spread it evenly. Top it with a stuffed eggplant and decorate with whole basil leaves. This is a recipe that is equally good served hot or cold. If you serve it cold, thin the coulis with a little water.
tout bas, tout bas. Oui, madame, bas ici, qui menti, madame. Ça fait pas qui menti, ça fait pas qui menti, madame.
The ingredients for the spinach loaf with tomato sauce are eggs, flour, unsalted butter, tomatoes, spinach, tomato paste, anchovies, onion, garlic, basil, olive oil, and milk. The ingredients: 2 pounds spinach, unsalted butter for loaf pans, salt, freshly ground pepper, bechamel sauce, 1 tablespoon unsalted butter, 2 tablespoons all-purpose flour, 3/4 cup cold milk, salt, freshly ground pepper, 4 eggs beaten, 8 oil-packed anchovy fillets. Tomato sauce: 1 pound tomatoes, peeled, seeded, and diced, 2 tablespoons olive oil, 1 onion, finely chopped, 2 cloves garlic, finely chopped, 1 tablespoon tomato paste, salt, freshly ground pepper, 2 tablespoons finely chopped fresh basil leaves. First, wash the spinach well. Then tear the stem off of each leaf. Separate the larger leaves from the smaller ones. The large leaves will be used to line the loaf pans, and the smaller leaves will be used in the loaf itself. Throw away the stems. Brush the loaf pans with the softened butter. Be sure to put plenty of butter on the bottom, sides, and corners. Cut a piece of parchment paper to fit in the bottom of each pan. This can be done easily by scraping the corners with the back of a knife. Place the paper in the bottom of the pan and brush the paper with butter. This will make the loaves easier to unmold once they are cooked. Sprinkle a little bit of salt and white pepper into each loaf pan. Once the loaf pans are prepared, set them aside. To cook the spinach, bring a large saucepan of salted water to a boil. To make the bechamel sauce, melt the unsalted butter in a small saucepan. This is to make the roux, which will thicken the sauce. Once the butter has melted, add the flour and stir well. Since bechamel is a white sauce, this roux should stay white. Stir it constantly and cook it for 3 to 4 minutes. Do not allow the roux to color. After a few minutes, pour in the milk. Stir well and wait for it to boil. It must boil to develop the proper consistency. Season with salt and white pepper. Break 4 eggs into a bowl and beat them with a fork or a wire whisk. Season the eggs with salt and pepper. Once the sauce comes to a boil, continue to whisk it. Be sure to scrape the bottom of the pan with the whisk to prevent the sauce from sticking and burning. When it is thickened, remove it from the heat. When the water comes to a boil, you are ready to blanch the spinach. Prepare a large bowl of ice water to refresh or shock the blanched leaves. This is very important since it will keep the spinach bright green and prevent it from discoloring. First, blanch the large leaves by putting them into the boiling water for a few seconds. This is just to soften them and not to cook them completely. Lift them gently out of the water and cool them immediately in the ice water. Then blanch the smaller leaves for about 3 or 4 minutes and refresh them in ice water or under cold running water. Dry the large leaves by laying them out flat on paper towels to protect them from the air and dry them thoroughly. These leaves will be used to line the loaf pans.
Alors, ensuite, je vais rajouter une petite feuille dessus, ça va protéger de l'air, et puis ça va sécher bien partout. Et je m'en servirai de ces feuilles pour chemiser l'intérieur et le dessus de mon pain d'épinards.
Carefully arrange the dry spinach leaves in the loaf pans.
Si vous avez des feuilles d'épinards un peu plus grosses,
First line the
ça pose
bottom,
pas de problème.
then the long sides, and lastly the short ends. The insides should be completely coated with spinach.
Assaisonner un tout petit peu.
Leave some excess on all 4 sides. Season the leaves with a little salt and pepper.
Et puis, en attendant, je vais presser mes épinards très fort. Ça va
Squeeze the smaller leaves in your hands to remove all of the water.
tout le jus.
The spinach must be very dry. Any water left in the spinach will make the leaves wet and they will not cook properly.
50-60% d'eau, bien enlevé. Si vous n'enlevez pas votre eau dans les épinards, le problème qui va se passer, c'est que ça va prendre de l'eau à la cuisson et votre pain d'épinards risque de ne pas cuire. Je prends les épinards qui ont été...
Place the dry spinach on your cutting board and chop it coarsely.
Maintenant, je vais les hacher grossièrement. Alors, ce qu'il faut faire quand vous faites un pain d'épinards, pour ça, il faut absolument bien assaisonner votre sauce au départ, parce que les épinards...
To prevent the spinach loaves from being bland, it is very important to season the spinach and sauce well later.
La sauce, les épinards accrus, et ensuite on va tout mélanger ensemble. Alors les épinards, vous les hachez grossièrement, il ne faut pas les hacher trop fin.
Put the bechamel sauce into a larger pan and reheat it.
Petite ébullition rapide.
Whisk it constantly until it is hot.
Et puis maintenant, dans cette sauce béchamel,
Remove it from the heat.
mais pas trop chaud et pas sur le feu, je vais
Pour
ajouter
in the beaten eggs and whisk them in very quickly. Be careful not to make scrambled eggs.
j'ajoute ça très vite
This must be done off the heat.
avec la béchamel et donc ces œufs. Et maintenant, donc plus d'ébullition, si vous faites une ébullition, les œufs vont être brouillés, vont être cuits, c'est pas ce que je veux. Maintenant, je vais
Then
ajouter
add the
dedans
chopped spinach and
les
stir it in with a wooden spoon.
que je vais bien mélanger avec cette mixture. Vous mélangez bien tout ça ensemble. J'ai réassaisonné un tout petit peu. Ça c'est important l'assaisonnement. Et puis,
You
je
will
vais
then
ajouter
chop the
dedans
anchovies
les
and add them to the spinach and sauce.
Ça va rehausser le goût.
Don't forget that anchovies are very salty, so you should use less salt when you season this mixture.
Pas trop salé. Alors les anchois.
Add some
la
pepper
mixture,
and a little bit of
le
salt.
poivre, un tout petit peu de sel.
Stir well to incorporate all of the ingredients.
Un mélange qui soit très homogène. Voilà. Et maintenant, je vais mettre cette mixture dans mes deux moules à cake. Alors,
Spoon the mixture into the lined loaf pans.
vous voyez, je vais bien farcir. Là, il faut bien farcir également pour que la cuisson soit bonne. Et puis, ça permettra
Pack it down firmly and evenly so that it will cook properly.
solide de se maintenir bien.
If the pans are filled correctly, the leaves will keep their form and be easy to unmold.
Hein. Les gâteaux, vous les
Tap the pans onto the counter to fill the corners well.
rabattez.
Fold the edges of the leaves over the top of the mixture and flatten the surface
Bien que ça
gently.
ferme le gâteau. Vous rabattez tout ça comme
It should be
ça.
completely covered with spinach.
Si vous avez quelques feuilles en plus, vous les
If you
rajoutez.
have any leftover whole leaves, they can be placed on top.
Vous voyez, et votre gâteau là est fermé.
Brush the top of the loaves with softened butter. Then add a little seasoning. Then you will place a piece of parchment paper on each. Put the loaf pans into a roasting pan. Fill it with hot water. The water should come halfway up the sides of the loaf pans. Bring the water to a boil on the stove and then transfer it carefully to the preheated 400-degree oven for 25 to 30 minutes. The tomato sauce will be made with peeled, seeded, and diced tomatoes. Heat a saucepan with a little bit of olive oil.
Un peu d'huile d'olive. Ici. Et je vais faire suer dedans l'oignon haché et
Add the chopped onion and chopped garlic.
Je fais suer.
Stir with a wooden spoon and allow them to sweat.
Je prends l'ail et je fais suer tout ça ensemble, donc sans coloration.
Let them cook gently without coloring.
Ici. Je vais ajouter un petit peu de concentré de tomate pour la couleur et le
Add some tomato paste for color and flavor.
Je vais faire cuire dès le départ avec mon oignon et mon
Cook the tomato paste with the onions and garlic to eliminate some of the acidity. Season with salt and pepper.
Un petit peu d'assaisonnement en sel et poivre au départ. Ici. Et puis maintenant, je vais ajouter mes tomates à l'intérieur et laisser réduire.
Add the fresh tomatoes and bring the sauce to a boil.
Le liquide se soit évaporé de moitié. Ce que je veux, c'est pas un coulis qui soit trop épais.
Let it reduce until half of the liquid has
Les
evaporated.
tomates s'évaporer de moitié et ensuite de ça, je passerai à la machine à purée et j'ajouterai mon basilic. Voilà. Pour le coup.
Test the spinach loaves by piercing the center with a small knife.
Alors, votre pain d'épinards, il faut le laisser.
When the blade comes out clean and hot, remove them from the oven. Remove the paper and take them out of the roasting pan.
Avant de démouler, pour éviter qu'il me casse.
Allow the loaves to rest for a few minutes before unmolding them to reduce the risk of them breaking. In the meantime, the assistant will be pureeing the tomato sauce in a food mill or food processor once the liquid in the tomato sauce has reduced by half.
Le papier.
She will finally slice some fresh basil leaves and add them to the sauce.
Vous évitez de le démouler trop longtemps à l'avance.
The chef will now use a clean brush to remove any loose pieces of cooked egg.
On va nettoyer un petit peu.
He's brushing a thin layer of oil or melted butter all over each loaf to make them shine and to prevent the spinach leaves from drying out.
Et là, vous passez au beurre ou à l'huile, c'est comme vous voulez, pour rendre brillant. Donc,
Pour the tomato sauce onto the serving platter and spread it out evenly.
bien chaud. Ici, et puis maintenant, mes pains d'épinards, et je vais les mettre
Arrange the spinach loaves on the platter.
sur mon plat. Juste avant de servir,
Immediately before serving, brush them with a little more butter to make them very shiny.
et on va pouvoir.
The spinach loaf can also be sliced and presented on an individual plate. And don't forget to decorate the platter with a few fresh basil leaves. Before beginning the next recipe, let's go back to our typical neighborhood Parisian market.
Allez, c'est bien, je dis pas, chérie, madame, va ici, qui m'a dit, ça, les baguettes, qui m'a dit, madame. Allez, c'est bien, je dis pas, chérie, madame, va ici, madame, je dis,
The chef will prepare an assortment of raw vegetables with creamed horseradish, avocado, and rouille sauces. The assorted vegetables include radishes, carrots, spring onions, cauliflower, tomatoes, and cucumbers. But these sauces go well with any fresh vegetable. Here are the ingredients. Creamed horseradish sauce, 5 teaspoons shredded horseradish, 1 teaspoon lemon juice, strained, salt, freshly ground pepper, 1 teaspoon sugar, a half cup heavy cream. Avocado sauce, 1 egg yolk, 1 teaspoon Dijon-style mustard, a half cup oil, salt, freshly ground pepper, 1 medium avocado, juice of a half lemon, strained, 2 tablespoons chopped parsley, 2 tablespoons chopped tarragon, 2 tablespoons chopped watercress, 2 shallots, finely chopped, 1 clove garlic, finely chopped, cayenne pepper. Brouille sauce. 1 red pepper, 1 small potato, 1 egg yolk, cayenne pepper, saffron, paprika, a half cup peanut oil, a half cup olive oil, a half teaspoon tomato paste, optional. Salt, freshly ground pepper. 1 head cauliflower, 1 bulb fennel, 1 small cucumber, 1 bunch radishes, 2 stalks celery, 1 small bunch spring onions or scallions, 8 small new carrots, 18 cherry tomatoes. Start with the red pepper that will be used to make the sauce brouille. Cut out the stem and cut the pepper in half. Scrape out all of the remaining seeds. Put a little bit of oil in the bottom of a sauté pan or roasting pan to prevent the peppers from sticking. Place the pepper halves in the pan and put them into a 350-degree preheated oven. Then cook the potatoes before starting to prepare the horseradish sauce. Wash the horseradish, cut off the ends, and peel it with a vegetable peeler. Shred it with a mandolin or a food processor. Then chop it finely with a sharp knife. You will then measure the heavy cream. Place a chilled bowl into a bowl of ice. Pour in the cream and whip it with a wire whisk until it is stiff. The whipped cream should form a point when you lift the whisk. Add the cream to the chopped horseradish. Stir gently with a wooden spoon, incorporate it thoroughly, and put it into the refrigerator. To make the avocado sauce, measure the peanut oil or another neutral oil. Separate the egg to make the mayonnaise. Add a teaspoon of Dijon-style mustard to the yolk and whisk well. Pour the oil in very slowly, whisking constantly. If the oil is added too quickly, the mayonnaise will separate. Season the mayonnaise with salt and pepper.
Voici donc la mayonnaise. Je vais assaisonner avec sel, poivre.
Then cut the avocado in half lengthwise. Remove the pit and throw it away. Use a spoon to scoop the flesh out of the skin. With a plastic pastry scraper, pass the flesh through a fine strainer. This will remove any fibers and leave the flesh very smooth. Do this through a strainer to catch the seeds. The lemon juice will prevent the avocado from darkening. Add the finely chopped parsley, tarragon, and watercress. Whisk this together well and add it to the mayonnaise.
Je mélange enfin tout ceci dans la mayonnaise.
Scrape the bowl well so nothing goes to waste, and whisk the sauce well. Now chop 2 shallots and 1 clove of garlic very finely. Add the chopped shallots and garlic to the sauce and whisk it well. Leave the avocado sauce at room temperature. Refrigeration or exposure to extreme heat can cause the mayonnaise to separate. Season with a pinch of cayenne pepper. Now back to the sauce rouille. Remove the red pepper from the oven once the skin begins to blacken. Peel off the skin and cut the peeled pepper into pieces. Use a plastic pastry scraper to pass the pepper through a fine strainer or puree it in a food processor or food mill. Now remove the cooked potato from the boiling water. And with a small knife, peel the cooked potato and cut it into slices. Pass the potato through the strainer and add it to the pureed pepper. Scrape the bottom of the strainer to keep all of the pepper and potato. Whisk the pepper and potato purees together. Separate an egg and whisk in the yolk.
Une pointe de cayenne.
Add a pinch of cayenne pepper, a little bit of saffron, and a pinch of paprika. Rouille means rust in French, which should be the color of the sauce. If you want it to be more red, you can add a small spoon of tomato paste. Don't add too much, though, or the sauce will be too acidic. Measure half a cup of peanut oil and a half cup of olive oil.
1 décilitre d'huile d'arachide, donc 1 décilitre.
Mix the two together and pour the oil slowly into the mixture, whisking constantly. Now the sauce rouille is finished. You will taste the sauce and adjust the seasonings if necessary. Now prepare the raw vegetables. Cut the cauliflower into small bouquets. Soak them in cold water with a little bit of vinegar. Trim the bulb of the fennel, cut it into pieces, and wash it in cold water. Peel the cucumber with a vegetable peeler. Cut the flesh away from the seeds. Do this in 4 cuts, leaving a square of seeds. Throw away the seeds and cut the flesh into sticks. Trim the root ends off the radishes. Use a sharp knife to cut the bulbs into flowers and soak them in cold water, which will cause them to open. With a vegetable peeler, remove the tough fibers from the celery. Then cut the stalks into bâtonnets.
Ensuite, on les coupe. Okay.
Trim the roots and top leaves off of the spring onions or scallions.
Donc, nous faisons les carottes fan.
Peel the small carrots and trim off the leaves and most of the stem. Scrape the tops well to remove all of the dirt.
N'oublie pas de gratter la base parce que c'est là où se niche la terre.
The vegetables can be presented on a melon or another large fruit.
Un peu de chou-fleur.
Stick them with toothpicks. Or just arrange them attractively on a serving platter or in a basket. Serve the sauces separately. Avocado, rouille, horseradish. As you can see, this preparation is perfect for any number of special occasions. As we're leaving our neighborhood market, don't forget our 7 additional cassettes filled with exclusive cordon bleu recipes.